Good morning, Excellencies, their participants, their colleagues. My name is Hanan Hanzaz. I'm the chief of the Arab Regional Bureau for the Regional Bureau for the Arab region. Happy to moderate today this first session on energy efficiency as forgotten dimension of industrial decarbonization. As my colleague Nubuya mentioned, one of the objectives of this forum is to share experiences, and we will be happy today to share the experience from 3 countries. The policy debate has often perceived the industrial policy and environmental and energy policy as rivals and drivers of an economic environmental performance trade-off. The main argument is that energy and environment policies more generally can increase industrial production costs and harm competitiveness of firms. Recent evidence shows that policies aimed at reducing emission are consistent with economic growth. They can even help firms to become more competitive. And it's what we will say today, actually, through our debate. UNIDO has a crucial role in promoting energy efficiency and industrial decarbonization worldwide. One of our UNIDO key strategies for promoting energy efficiency and industrial decarbonization is to assist governments in developing and implementing policies and regulations that encourage the adoption of cleaner and more sustainable industrial practices. Through its various initiatives and programs, UNIDO is helping countries to reduce their carbon footprint and improve their energy efficiency, leading to significant environmental benefits such as reduced greenhouse gas emissions and improved air quality. Therefore, our session today will discuss policy and practices of the world countries promoting and of some countries promoting energy efficiency as one of the main component for the industrial competitiveness. I'm happy to introduce the first speaker today for opening remarks, Mr. Yoko Yasunaga, the Deputy to the Director General of UNIDO and Managing Director for the Directorate of Corporate Services and Operations.
Thank you very much, Hanan, for your kind introduction. Excellencies, the distinguished guests, speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Yoko Yasunaga, Deputy to the Director General and the Managing Director of UNIDO. It is my great honor and pleasure to be with you and to deliver some ideas in this session with regard to industrial policies and energy efficiency, taking 3 examples to demonstrate the relationship and implications between the 2 items. First, the importance of the function of a market mechanism. In other words, the movement of the energy price can be primary signal to advance the energy efficiency measures. I still remember that after the first oil shock in 1973, the income elasticity of energy consumption of Japan's industrial sector had fallen to almost half in almost 15 years, and mostly achieved in 5 years immediately after 1974. In other words, Japan's industrial sector could successfully transform its structure to attain the same level of output with almost 50% energy input. This was achieved with active introduction of energy efficient equipment or technologies by the industries to reduce and economize energy consumption. This can be interpreted that Japan became a country to consume less energy but more energy efficient equipment or technologies, because the relative price of energy became more expensive and the relative price of such capital investment became much cheaper and technologically available compared to the period before the first oil shock. In that sense, what we found in the classical experience is that the new technologies and the market mechanism are the base for advancing energy efficiency measures. Second, I want to point out the possible and positive impact on the environment, rather synergy between the 2 items. If energy consumption is reduced to get the same amount of the output, alternatively, efficient production methodologies are developed, the amount of emissions of carbon dioxide, SOx, NOx, and particle matters also decreased. In addition, abundant heat can be recaptured and reused, as we see those are at almost 100% of contemporary petrochemical factories and iron and steel industries. This eloquently depicts that energy efficiency measures can help industries to be more efficient and to reduce negative environmental impacts. This is also observed in a case of regulation of exhaust gas emissions from automobiles. Fuel-efficient automobiles emit smaller amount of exhaust gases, and vice versa, vehicles with smaller emission are energy-efficient vehicles. From such observations, we can generally conclude that energy efficiency measures can contribute to a realization of environmentally sound society and industry. It's almost like one stone gets two birds, not trade off. We need to design better policies to fully exploit the synergic effects of the two by promoting advanced technologies and brand new business models. Third is a linkage with the governmental policies. As you know, many countries have already established regulations to demonstrate the energy efficiency of many consumer electronic appliances to manufacturers and retailers. In some cases, the minimum level of the technical standards of the energy efficiency are provided in a legal requirement or in a form of self-regulations of industries. Those measures are also being taken for logistic industries, housing industries, and manufacturing industries. In addition to such measures to the supply side, tax incentive or subsidies are provided to potential users of the energy efficient equipment. Furthermore, some private companies convert their production facilities to manufacture more energy efficient products, like from fluorescent lamps to LEDs. The modality of the combination of mandatory regulations and voluntary measures must reflect the country's socio-economic conditions, industrial structure, the consumers' mindsets, and implementation capacity of the government. In other words, tailor-made policies are essential. We can call it the dynamism of industrial policies. There's no royal road in energy efficiency measures. Many different approaches shall be taken to achieve the expected results in a wide range of industries simultaneously. I myself, as a UNIDO staff who had experienced diverse areas of industrial policies at the government of Japan, I believe that planning and implementing industry policies must have 5 dimensions as follows. First, to enable equitable access to finance. 2, to incentivize research and development. 3, to ensure stable supply of indispensable inputs, including human resources, raw materials, and energies. 4, to ensure open access to markets. And 5, to promote sustainability of the society. As you clearly recognize that energy efficiency measures are closely related to all those elements, I really hope that this session will give us precious insights to this critical issue, which is inevitably addressed for achieving SDGs. I do not think the energy efficiency policies are forgotten, although it is approaching to the point of saturation in some developed countries, but there are many rooms, vast rooms for developing and emerging countries. Even for developed countries, the saturation of conventional type of technologies means that we have much opportunities for new technologies. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DDG. Thank you, Mr. Yasunaga. Thank you for highlighting also the example from Japan, one where half of energy was enough to produce the same amount of outputs. And thank you for recalling also the 5 dimensions for successful implementation of an industrial policy. Thank you also for highlighting that energy efficiency is an important component for the competitiveness of the industry today. Dear participants, dear colleagues, we will have 2 presentations before starting our debate, when we will have a discussion highlighting the experience from 3 countries, Austria, Egypt, and Ghana. We will start first with 2 presentations, and the first one will be delivered by my colleague, Ms. Rana Ghonaim, Chief of the Industrial Systems and Industrial Decarbonization Unit. And Rana, she will be connected, she will be online, and she is now in Brazil. Good morning, Rana.
Hi, good morning, Hanan. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Rana.
I cannot start my video. It says the host has stopped it. So, I mean, I can speak. I just, maybe the colleagues want to enable the video sharing. Otherwise, maybe I can start and then you just give me a signal when the video sharing is enabled. So good morning, colleagues and distinguished delegates. It's my pleasure to join you despite the very early hour in Brazil to really talk about a very important topic that has been for a very long time, one that UNIDO is very highly recognized for. And I'm truly pleased also that, in fact, 2 of the countries that have been supported for quite some time already within the UNIDO programs, both Egypt and Ghana, are participating, and that also Austria, as our partner country, also is going to be sharing its own experience. Let me try to shed some light on why energy efficiency is a crucial option for the decarbonization. First and foremost, energy efficiency is really critical for solving the climate crisis. It has, in many cases, actually proven to be a very cost-effective way to mitigate climate change and also at the same time reduce the energy waste, saving money and affordably expanding the use of renewable energy sources, simply because the energy we don't use is always equivalent to energy that we also generate. Energy efficiency could actually deliver about 40% of the abatement required to be in line with the Paris Agreement. So this is a very high potential area. However, at the same time, what I would like to point out is it is actually one that is often now forgotten because in the Paris Agreement scenarios, energy efficiency and renewable energy alone are not going to be enough to bring us to the net zero scenario we need by 2050. So essentially that calls for the implementation of breakthrough technologies like hydrogen and CCUS, and also for countries to invest more in innovative technologies for the electrification of heat. Nevertheless, this turns the attention also of countries from this very much readily available solution that is there and that could help us not only with our Paris climate goals, but also with our 2030 goals, because the SDG 7 in fact calls for doubling the rate of energy efficiency, and we are really far off track for that. Now, according to the International Energy Agency, and you'll hear more from the colleague speaking after me, in their report to New Zero by 2050, increased energy efficiency will allow the world economy to grow by 40% by 2030, all while using 7% less energy than today. So energy efficiency is an indispensable part of delinking economic growth from emissions, an area that our Director General has been emphasizing quite a lot. Policies can mandate the use of new industrial benchmarks for equipment like electric motors, for example, which are very commonly used in industry, and in fact represent around 60% of the electricity that is used in the industrial sector. And then just to give you an example on the potential also related to how much energy could be generated simply through what the EU has adopted. in terms of the adoption of a standard for more highly efficient motors in industry. So the EU is intending to save around 110 terawatt hours by 2030 simply through the use of these higher efficiency motors. That is actually equivalent to the entire annual electricity consumption of a country like the Netherlands. So just to put into perspective that indeed this is a very high opportunity. Despite, however, this multiple benefits of energy efficiency, it is still not deployed at the full potential. So we are still lacking on the scale and the speed of the deployment for energy efficiency. And this is for a number of reasons. Firstly, industry's business is actually to increase productivity and not to save energy. And this speaks a lot to the focus of the session today, because unless we bring those two together, the need to save energy and the need to increase productivity, the need to save energy and the need to integrate that into industrial policy at the same time, we're not going to go far nor deep enough to implement energy efficiency. Second, awareness of industry of the opportunity to save energy, as well as the technical knowledge of different players in the market. And it was already mentioned earlier in the speeches, the need to create that market condition is actually limited. There is not enough technical knowledge and not enough awareness, even by industry, especially in developing and emerging economies, on the need to jump on this train for industrial decarbonization. And finally, one of the barriers we also see is actually the lack of policy tools and incentives to unlock the potential of energy efficiency and provide adequate financing models to fund energy efficiency projects. Now I would like to turn actually to the role of UNIDO and our history in promoting energy efficiency. And there you might all be aware about the UNIDO's Industrial Energy Efficiency Program and also the Industrial Energy Accelerator, which have been key global initiatives contributing to this huge task of accelerating energy efficiency. The programs are implemented in countries and that have been actually covering more than 28 countries with a cumulative budget of around $150 million within a period of 10 years. So in fact, we have relied on funding quite a lot from the Global Environment Facility. More recently, we see also funding coming from the EU, from Germany, from also the Green Climate Fund to support our industrial energy efficiency program. And we intend to grow that to cover the entire range of industrial decarbonization technologies. Through the program, UNIDO advises governments on the design of legislation, technical regulations, standards, and benchmarking programs that can help drive demand for energy efficiency. And here I would like to highlight that for this demand to take up, at the end of the day, there needs to be a very clear business case for energy efficiency. And I would like to echo also what Mr. Yazonaka said regarding the need in a way to phase out fossil fuel subsidies to ensure that at the end of the day, we do have a competitive market and a same level playing field for all technologies and for actually energy efficiency to pick up. Governments can also adopt policies to promote energy management systems, which in line with ISO 50001, which have been really core to what UNIDO has done in almost all of the 28 countries that I mentioned. And on the demand side, we really try to focus on the early adopters. So these are industries that are willing and are the first movers, in a sense, to implement energy management and energy efficiency, and then putting a high spotlight on highlighting these examples and case studies from these industries to encourage others to also join. Now, one thing I wanted to also mention is under the Industrial Accelerator program, we really do a lot of advocacy as well for this so-called invisible solution. We do call energy efficiency invisible solution because while it is very important, it's simply doing more with less. And in comparison to renewable energy, for example, where there is an installation of a new technology, sometimes the energy efficiency also falls back. So our approach is really to say energy efficiency and renewables are the perfect match. They go hand in hand and they support overall the competitiveness of industry. Through our industrial accelerator program, we actually offer tools and solutions, kits for energy efficiency that could be used by the industries as well as by countries to promote policies related to energy efficiency. And we will very soon be launching also our online training platform, digitizing our ongoing training material that we implement in many, many countries. Now, I would like to turn to where we could do more, in fact, and what are the possible areas of interventions. And again, just to highlight that we need to focus on creating the same level playing field for all technologies, helping energy efficiency and renewables be more competitive. And so within that, in addition to this phase out of fossil fuel subsidies, there are a couple of policy levers that we could work on to accelerate progress. First, integration of energy efficiency goals and targets into sectoral roadmaps to bring closer this industrial policy and energy policy objectives. And a good example of that is actually the India Perform, Achieve and Trade scheme, in which industrial sectors, and they are actually working with 13 energy intensive sectors, have targets for energy reductions, and then sectoral associations work with companies on ensuring that these targets are actually met and the reductions are achieved. This is a great example, and indeed now with India's G20 presidency, we are working with the government of India and putting together a report highlighting cost-effective technologies for achieving industrial decarbonization and bringing particularly policy lessons related to this PAT schemes. The other point we could also need to focus a lot more on is adoption of policy instruments to unlock the potential of energy efficiency. And for example, a very powerful tool is the adoption of minimum energy performance standards for industrial equipments like motors, and also mandating the early retirement of inefficient motors, because what we see on the ground is actually what matters a lot, especially in energy efficiency, where we're not really going for new installations. We're in fact, in many cases, also retrofitting existing practices. It's very important to look at when is the replacement time for the equipment so when is the retirement time in a way for these equipment that we're replacing, because this will be very helpful in enticing industry to take the right decision and to move towards these technologies. So, the example of Egypt, which will come in later, is one where we have really focused on creating a national program promoting industrial energy efficiency for the motors, and focusing not only on the adoption of energy efficient motors in industry, but also focusing on the creation of supply chains for the manufacturing of motors, as in Egypt there is already existing also manufacturing of motors, and it's important for us to also bring in the local producers and the local manufacturers as we think about adoption of minimum energy performance standards. Finally, I would like to end with a note on the role of international organizations in promoting energy efficiency, and where we see some of the potential now for elevating global ambition on energy efficiency. And I'd like to point out, in fact, to an initiative that was launched in 2019 at the SG Summit, and that is the 3% Club, which is essentially a coalition of agencies, including the IEA, C4All, UNEP, and of course UNIDO, to improve or work on improving the rate of energy efficiency 3% annually. However, last year we actually recognized that, especially after the COVID pandemic, 3% is not good enough anymore, and we need to really increase that. And so we've worked on rebranding the initiative to mission efficiency. And what we are trying to focus on within that initiative, together with our sister agencies, is elevating the narrative of energy efficiency and how it fits into different sectors: industrial sector, building sector, transport sector, and beyond. The second point is supporting implementation of energy efficiency policies. And then thirdly, matching countries' needs with solutions offered by the different agencies. So in fact, if a country has a specific challenge related to the industrial sector, they can turn to mission efficiency, and UNIDO would be one of the agencies that's supporting them. The challenge remains that really energy efficiency, as I mentioned before, is an invisible solution that is often forgotten in the climate debate. And I would call on all of the representatives here today, be it from countries, from companies, or academia, to work with us on unlocking energy efficiency as the first solution and the most readily deployable option for decarbonization. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'll turn back over to you, Hanan.
Thank you, Rana. Thank you, Rana. Despite the technical issue, I think that we were able to follow your intervention. Thank you for recalling that energy efficiency is not enough to reach the objective of Paris Agreement, for also recalling that SDG 7 calls for doubling the rate of energy efficiency, and we need more effort in order to achieve this goal. That energy efficiency will allow the global economy to grow by 5%, and mentioning also that one of our Director General priorities is to delink the economic growth for the impact on environment, and energy efficiency is one of the tools. You mentioned also that there is an important need and an urgent need today to increase the speed of deploying the energy efficiency, the need for more awareness raising and technical training. You mentioned also the launch of UNIDO online training. We are going digital, I think, and it's very important. Thank you for recalling also the history of UNIDO project in energy efficiency through the different program targeting more than 28 countries with more than 150 million over the past 10 years. Thank you also for mentioning the mission efficiency as a new branding for the 3% Club that was launched in 2019 during the SDG Summit, and the fact that you are calling to consider energy efficiency as a solution today, as it's an invisible solution forgotten in the climate debate. Thank you very much, Rana, and we move to our second speaker and our second presentation, also online. Ms. Emma Moni from the International Energy Program Officer in the International Energy Agency in the Energy Efficiency Division, and she will present policy framework for energy efficiency. Mr. Moni, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here to talk to you today at this fascinating forum. Yesterday was fascinating, and today promises to be as well. So I'm going to speak quickly because I'm really interested, as I'm sure most people are, in hearing from Ghana, from Austria, and from Egypt. I'm going to try and share my screen and see if we can get the presentation. Is it possible for you to see my screen?
Yes, excellent.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So I'm going to go through the slides fairly quickly, and while I know this is a chat forum or a talking forum, we thought it would be good to show a few pictures that tell 1,000 words. What I'm going to talk about is where we need to go, where we have seen evidence of where we have gone, and some of the advice that we have about policy here in the IEA. Sorry, just one second. My apologies, my slides are not moving. So for the first slide, apologies for that delay, is our milestones on the pathway to net zero in 2050. At the IEA, we are looking at getting to net zero emissions by 2050. And what you can see from the chart is that industry is a key player and has a long way to go. I'd like to build on what was said earlier about that you need to cooperate with your neighbours. It's not just neighbours, the sectors need to cooperate with each other as well in order for us to get to our net zero target. The key focus of this chart is how to get to net zero. And for industry, there is a mix of low emissions technology and adopting best practice. However, interestingly, if you look at the 2040, the main reductions to 2030, 40% of the emissions reductions by there are due to changes in materials efficiency and recycling. And by 2050, the electrification of transport and buildings means that 90% of the emissions that need to be addressed are mainly in the industrial sector. But what we can see is that energy efficiency plays a key role in reducing the energy consumption across all end-use sectors, and especially when we look at industrial energy efficiency. We can see that it has an impact immediately, and this is through the measures that Rana would have mentioned, like motor efficiency, energy management systems, low temperature heat pumps, and etc. Industry as well, interestingly, is very job intensive. There are 10 jobs created for every 1 million invested. And for every dollar invested in improving motor-driven systems, which again Rana was talking about earlier, you save $7 in energy over the lifetime of the equipment. So this is where we need to get to by 2050 to get to our net zero emissions goals. One of the things that's interesting though is it can be hard to assess what energy efficiency has done. So that's something we're working on. What has energy efficiency already given to us? Well, it's playing a key role in delivering our energy security. What we see in this chart are the forces pushing global energy demand higher through greater economic activity, such as rising incomes, rising population and business activity, as well as structural changes towards or away from more energy intensive activities. These are being offset by the energy moderating forces of improved efficiency, which is the light green colour. On balance, energy efficiency gains have halved the potential in global energy demand over the last 6 years, taking vital pressure off the need for greater fossil fuel consumption, more power stations and energy infrastructure. In the IEA countries alone, such efficiency actions taken over the last 20 years have resulted in a reduction of about 15% of the total energy expenditure in IEA countries in 2022 alone. Energy efficiency is also very important in tackling global CO2 emissions. Since 2000, there's been an upward pressure on CO2 emissions from rising populations and incomes, as with the previous chart. And this has also been moderated by by improvements in energy intensity, In the most recent decade, the effect of efficiency has been even greater as the rate of energy intensity progress almost doubled between the 2 decades. When combined with the shifts in carbon intensity of the energy mix, the effect on lowering CO2 emissions has been even greater. And the net effect of these changes means that efficiency gains of the last 20 years have halved potential growth from rising incomes and populations. Without these efficiency improvements in CO2 emissions would be around 30% higher today. And this is what we can track. More information, the more we can track. So our proposed approach. We have proposed approach of a policy packages for industrial energy policies. We launched this has been a work in progress over a number of years in the agency, trying to find some easy way of putting across what policies need to incorporate. And we launched it at our IEA Energy Efficiency Global Conference in 2022. And the reason I have the picture up here is because immediately it spoke to the politicians. They were able to share it. We've had really good feedback that this has been a very simple but effective way of communicating what needs to be in policies and what needs to be covered under the policies. The policies themselves, the policy packages present a practical approach on policy design and implementation, and is built on 3 essential elements: regulation, information, and incentives. And the policy packages try to highlight how the combination of these 3 measures, so the policy needs to have an element of all of these 3 measures, gives the most effective package. The policies themselves, I'm just going to move forward 1 slide so we can take a little bit of a closer look at the regulation, information and incentives that we've identified for industry. So there are things like we mentioned there, or that Rena was mentioning, like the MEPs for equipment like pumps and motors, regulations to reduce energy use, and other regulation instruments in the regulation side. And what's important about these is that they're ambitious and they're regularly updated. We need no regret policies at this stage. On information, we look at benchmarking, indicators, and other forms of detailed data. Digital is an essential part of what we're doing at the moment and what we need to do for the future. It's essential that any new equipment is as demand side ready as possible for demand flexibility. This is true for equipment throughout industry and throughout every sector. And sharing information on energy efficiency best practice as well. And then in terms of incentives, this can be in subsidized energy audits, in working with ESCOs, incentives like finance, tax, and the provision of money. But what we're saying is that policies work best when they're a combination of regulation, information, and incentives. And that really is a quick summary of what we're thinking here at the IEA, and I look forward to hearing the discussion later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Moni. Thank you for highlighting the key role that energy efficiency can play in reducing energy consumption across all end sectors, and in particular the industrial sector, and for mentioning that that efficiency is playing a key role in developing energy security as well. Thank you also for presenting the importance of policy package approach that will combine the three dimension: regulation, information, and incentives. After the two presentations, we will move now to our session and the moderated debate that will be followed by question and answer. I will just invite participants, especially participants online, to ask their questions in the chat part, so we will be able to be ready for the question and answer. We will have three participants, and we will share the experience from three countries. The first participant from Egypt, Mr. Mohammed Abdel Karim, the chairman of the Industrial Development Authority within the Ministry of Trade and Industry. He will be participating online. The second participant is Mr. Thomas Ebel from Austria. He is a senior advisor at the Economic Policy Department of the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber. And our third speaker will be Ms. Dora Laria, Senior Program Officer in Ghana Ministry of Energy. I have the pleasure to start with Mr. Abdel Karim from Egypt, and I want just to make sure that all our three speakers are online.
Yeah, I am available. I am with you. Yeah, Mohammed Abdel Karim is available.
Excellent. Sabah al khair, Mr. Abdel Karim, and happy to have you with us. My first question, Mr. Abdel Karim, I think you were following the different presentation and the opening remarks. A certain number of, we will try to answer a certain number of questions that was raised during the different presentation. My first question to you, Mr. Abdel Karim, is the Industrial Development Authority in Egypt that you are heading is the authority responsible for implementing the industrial policies set by the Ministry of Trade and Industry to stimulate and encourage investment in industrial sector. To what extent energy efficiency is recognized as a strategic level, an important driver of industrialization?
First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to UNIDO for their persistence to support Egypt and other countries in such very important topic, as energy is considered as a driver and the main enabler of the economy. Also, all my gratitude to all the participants in today's forum. Regarding Egypt, Egypt is a developing country with a fast-growing population of about 103 million, with ambitious economic growth outlook. Its demographics place considerable stresses on natural resources, employment, infrastructure, education, and healthcare. The government of Egypt launched a comprehensive energy policy reform program in electricity and oil gas sector and the industrial sector that included substantial renewable energy and energy efficiency programs, as reflected in the integrated energy strategy of 2030, which is the target was to reduce the energy consumption by 18% in 2035 compared to 2010. Egypt vision in 2030 stating the main targets considerable for the industrial sector as follows: increasing the industrial growth rate by 10% annually, increasing the industrial share in GDP by 21%, developing small and medium enterprises and supporting their innovation and competitiveness, enhancing the quality and safety standard of industrial product and services, promoting green industry and reducing greenhouse gas emission by 10% from the energy sector. The last 2 points are focusing on product quality and decreasing the greenhouse gases. Both cannot achieved without energy efficiency. Accordingly, we are working together. We are working together with the international development organizations on the energy efficiency plan on the industry with focus on the following points: raising awareness of energy efficiency in industry, industrial motor efficiency, solar water heaters, quality human resources qualify human resources for regular details energy audit on site, energy efficiency on lighting, industrial, building and factories. The National Energy Efficiency Plan 2, which starting from 2019 to 2022, NEEAP 2, was approved by the Cabinet compliance with the objective of Egypt Sustainable Development Strategy 2030. The NEEP 2 is also in line with Industrial Strategy 2030 and aims to activating the articles of Electricity Law of number 87 and its executive regulation regarding energy efficiency improvement requirements. The energy consumption for the industrial sector was about 33% of 2021. Some actions taken to implement this program, like energy efficiency institutional framework, energy efficiency projects, financial mechanism, data gathering and measuring, reviewing and verification system, capacity building, technical assistance, and awareing readiness. Egypt has established and released also the National Energy Balance with the help of many international development organizations and in cooperation of many ministries and authorities according to the United Nations definition to this energy balance. These efforts and this as a strategic level, and we can make it in details for the second and third fourth question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdel Karim. Thank you for recalling also that the ambitions in the national economic growth as well as the population growth are putting a lot of pressure today on the energy resources. Thank you also for recalling that the Egypt 2030 strategy have one of the main targets is to increase an annual increase growth in the industrial sector of 10% and for presenting measures and effort taken by the government of Egypt to tackle this point. And thank you also for highlighting the importance of the international cooperation and including the cooperation with UNIDO in this regards. I will turn to the second speaker from Austria, Mr. Thomas Ebel. I will just ask you if it's possible to turn on your camera. It will be more easier for the participants in the room to follow up. My question to you is the Austrian Economic Chamber represents more than 540,000 member companies. As the voice of the Austrian business, the Austrian Economic Chamber is committed to forward-looking policies. To what extent forward-looking policies include energy policies and why? Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. Before I start, unfortunately, I cannot turn on the camera. It's blocked by the host. I want to say, dear Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be able to contribute to this honorable forum. And I want to start answering the question with, of course, we now know that energy is a future topic, especially since last year. Energy affects the whole society. Energy policy has more and more become a part of location policy, and location policy is always forward-orientated, future-orientated. Why is that? Energy policy has to do with future investment incentives and future markets. And it also has to do with technical innovations and social rethinking of how the society wants to live in the future time. And it also has an international dimension that makes us forward-looking when it comes to energy security for future generations and also political power issues. And in this context, of course, energy is we are dependent, interdependent with the rest of the world when it comes to energy, and also this one-sided dependencies have a future dimension for the future generations. So there is no doubt also that ecological change is about to come. So we all know that. And therefore, our economies here in Austria and Europe have to ask themselves, will they be pioneers of a global energy transition? They should, because we have the resources to develop and make technical marketable solutions. And we also have the resources to support the way out of fossil industries in other parts of the world by developing products that are marketable and price-worthy then. And in order to get these future steps, more cooperation definitely is needed for this effective resource use. So we need more cooperation together, and this forum is one sign that this can work to research, more cooperation in development, and also in a technical issue, more cooperation when it comes to transnational power grids. And therefore, it's very important to have reliable energy policy frameworks for the companies who share the main burden of the ecological and structural change. So to sum it up, in my point of view, energy policy is for the future because it sets now, today, the course for living conditions of the future generations. And it's not just here in Austria or in Europe, it's worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. Thank you for recalling that energy is a topic that affects actually the society as a whole, not only the economic sector, and that the energy policy is dealing with investment in incentives in the future markets. Thank you also for calling for more collaboration in this field. The collaboration is really needed, and it's one of the objectives actually of this session today. And thank you also for highlighting that energy policy is policy for the future. I will call the third speaker with us today, Ms. Dora Laria from the Ministry of Energy from Ghana. According to the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, energy efficiency is in the industrial sector is at discussion stage. What is the role of energy efficiency in a country like Ghana today, and what are the difficulties of promoting energy efficiency in a country at an early industrialization stage?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Laria. We can hear you.
Yes, my video is not working proper, so I think I will speak. The one is come on, I will turn on the video. Okay, so I'm Dora Lai, a senior program officer with Ministry of Energy from Ghana. I'm turning in for Dr. Soboji, who was supposed to be part of this discussion, has equally gone for another assignment on behalf of the Minister of Ghana. So in respect to the question that you asked, energy efficiency, as we know, play a vital role in our industries. In Ghana here, energy, Ghana has topped the importance of CFC bulbs. This has reduced the amount of money for importation. We have also encouraged the use of energy efficiency bulbs. With respect to the industries, it is very key because it goes a long way to reduce energy intensity as well as production costs. However, investing in industrial energy efficiency equipment has high upfront costs. So most industries will find it difficult to invest in energy efficiency productivity. However, when government is supporting, we believe it will embrace it because it will go a long way with other advantages. Some of the challenges with respect to industrial equipment is the high upfront cost, which goes into the into the production. So the government need to sensitize the industries, build the capacity of industry players, as well as be able to fund the energy efficiency equipment because it has a long-term benefit. So in that sense, we also urge the UNIDO to collaborate with our country in order to sensitize and build the capacity of industry players. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Laria. Thank you for recalling also that the energy efficiency is playing a vital role in the industrial sector, and that one of the main challenges is the industrial equipment. And here there is a need, and efforts to be done from both government side, but also the support that can be provided from international organizations to build the capacities, to share also the experience for the industrial sector to adopt energy efficiency techniques and technologies. I will return back to Mr. Abdel Karim from Egypt. Mr. Abdel Karim, Egypt National Energy Efficiency Action Plan is the Egypt strategic document for the country for energy efficiency. The strategy sets industry as one of the important recipients for the energy efficiency. How was the strategy setting process, and what do you think are the improvements that the strategy triggered, and what are the remaining challenges for the industry?
Actually, Egypt is focusing more and more on the energy efficiency. As example for this, Egypt is completely phased out of electricity subsidized in 2019. Electricity prices have increased significantly. This has put a financial pressure on numerous industrial sectors throughout the country. Egypt also maintains one of the most energy-intensive industrial sectors in the MENA region. Energy consumption per unit of output in Egyptian industries is up to 50% higher in Egypt compared to the industrial average. So this makes a pressure of the industrial sector. So the industrial energy efficiency offers a variety of solutions for Egypt's challenges. Investing in solar technologies and efficient motor is among the highest impact opportunities for energy efficiency, which will help to promote industrial productivity while reducing carbon emission. Until recently, energy efficiency was not a priority for the Egyptian industry to subsidize energy prices and a preference for the second-hand equipment. However, after major energy subsidized reform, Egypt historically energy-intensive industries are starting to seek alternative solutions to maintain their profit margin. Their shift could potentially open a window for opportunity for energy efficiency market and an emergent solar thermal technologies and the local value chain. Egypt vision aimed to capitalize on this emerging interest on solar thermal and power energy efficiency technologies. This vision focuses on a series of policy initiatives to create an enabling market environment for innovation. And worth mentioning that Egypt National Energy Efficiency Action Plan is just an idea in 2010 to have an energy efficiency framework that was approved from the cabinet in 2012 to release its first version on 2012 to 2015. Followed by the second version of 2018 to 2022, reaching the third edition of this program, which is currently getting updated by the Higher Energy Council and Ministry of Electricity, and participation of the industrial sectors and all stakeholders. The main achievement of this national plan as follows: energy efficiency institutional framework, which resulted in 10 energy efficiency units were established, and 4 under development under supervision of Supreme Energy Council. Energy efficiency project, developing a financial mechanism for such a project, data gathering and measuring, reporting and verifying program, capacity building and technical assistance and awareness raising, climate change targeting about 33% of greenhouse gases reduction by 2030, reducing electricity grid emission by about 22%. Future policy planning. This is a point regarding this project. And meanwhile, the main challenges that faced with the implementation are as the follow. This is the following challenging. lack of institutional setup that ensures coordination and exchange of data, absence of a mechanism of verification, follow-up, and evaluation of the plan's outputs, limited capacity building programs, access to finance, especially for non-state-owned projects. Now we are working on presenting a practical solution to overcome these challenges through the updated Egypt National Efficiency Action Plan and with the international bodies which support this direction. And the most important is the UNIDO to support in this direction and putting the policy to overcome these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abdel Karim. Thank you for presenting the main achievements of this national plan that has helped to achieve this double objective of reducing the costs for the industrial sector, but also reducing the CO2 emissions, and for highlighting also the main challenges that can be also shared by other countries, including lack of institutional setup, absence of a mechanism for verification, and the limited capacity building program, and the role that an organization like UNIDO can play in order to support the government in this sense. I will return now to our colleague, Mr. Ebel from Austria. According to the energy strategy Austria, the objective of the Austrian energy strategy is to develop a sustainable energy system which make energy services available for private consumption, as well as for the businesses in the future. What do you think are the benefits and the challenges of the integration between national and the European objectives, and how do you define those objectives?
Thank you very much for the question, and obviously now the video works, so welcome all together. In my opinion, the integration between national and European objectives and the integration of policy fields is very important for successful climate and energy policy, because climate and energy policy must be coordinated and harmonized in order to get some kind of balance, a balance between environmental stability that we all want, but we also want to stay our companies, our industry competitive, so competitiveness. We need an affordability for the households of energy. And of course, we need to reach security of supply. So in order to balance all of these demands, we need to have a framework that secures this now and in the future. And when we have this clear framework between national policies and European policies, we can avoid misinvestments on the one side and also structural disruptions that none of us really wants. And when countries work together, of course, countries with higher abilities of energy policy change have to take a higher share. And that's why also the Austrian government here shared the goal that they want to be climate neutral in 2040 already, which is within the goal of the European Union, where the time would be 2050. And so each and every sector needs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And when we tell our companies to do that, and we are within a common market, we need to get some kind of common strategy so that everybody has a fair level playing field left. And by defining European solutions, we have like a future path for all the companies and all the households within the common market. And when we have such kind of policy, fair conditions exist, and we can work forward towards those goals. So overall, a fair level playing field is maintained. And when it comes to real cooperation in the field, the very best achievement one can have is that one also works on common market designs, for example, for electricity markets on a greater scale, and have more efficiency in the end. And that's what I think about this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this perspective from the private sector when the balance between environmental sustainability competitiveness is very important. Thank you also for recalling the objective of Austria to achieve the neutrality by 2040 and how this objective is also translated into action and commitment for the private companies operating in a common market. My questions for Ms. Laria now from Ghana. Ghana is a country which has made great effort to reduce fossil fuel subsidies. To what extent do you think that this policy represents an impediment to future encouragement of energy efficiency policies?
Okay, thank you. Ghana has reduced subsidy on fossil fuel utilization. The main purpose was not to encourage energy efficiency, but was purely from the economic point of view. Nevertheless, it may also have its effect on energy efficiency because now the full cost of fuel is derived from the end users. We make sure that the fuel is managed by using some energy efficiency additives or mix or dilute the fuel to enhance the smooth combustion, and that will add up to the energy efficiency. So the cost of fuel may end up driving the energy efficiency agenda expensive, though that might not be the intent. High costs will make stop the usage of fossil fuel and cut down trees to make their own energy, and that will also worsen our climate change agenda that we are educating people on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leah. I will go directly to the third question as we have only 20 minutes left for our session. And my question to Mr. Abdel Karim from Egypt. As one of the efforts implemented by the government of Egypt to promote energy efficiency was the adoption of the decree making mandatory the purchase of premium efficiency class motors. Can you please describe the policy design and implementation, and what do you think are the positive impact and challenges related to the application of this decree? Thank you. Mr. Abdel Karim? And I was informed also that the speakers can turn on now the camera because it's working. Mr. Abdel Karim, can you hear me? If not, I will go directly to Austria. Mr. Thomas, the reference norm for Austria about energy efficiency is the Austrian Energy Efficiency Act concluded in 2020. What do you think are the positive aspects and challenges of the designed instrument? And our question to you is the federal government planning to set up an updated policy, and what would be the pillars of the new legislation?
All right, thank you very much. Well, the goal of the old Energy Efficiency Act was to reduce the final energy consumption by 310 petajoule by the end of 2020. So it was planned that 160 about should be reduced by energy suppliers and 151 through the measures taken by the state. We reached the goal of 363 petajoule.
Mr. Abdel Karim, Mr. Abdel Karim, I just give the floor to Austria and then I will return to you.
Okay, thank you. Because I have a trouble during the. Okay, I wait.
All right. So what I wanted to say is that in 2019, we already have reached the goal of 363 petajoules. And this is definitely a positive result we had. So we exceeded this target of 310,000 already in the fourth year. But the design was, the policy design led to about 250 million additional costs for about 508 energy suppliers. And we had 2,800 companies with energy audits every 4 years. And those audit costs, they were about 10,000 to 100,000 per year. That made a total amount of 150 million euros. And here, maybe the entering presentation of Ms. Money was interesting because she had this incentives idea for maybe free audits, which would make such programs much easier. So the saving target was met ahead of schedule. The administrative burden for the economy was very excessive. So, and the updated version that is in the pipeline right now of the Act sees for that 1/5 of the energy consumption in Austria should be reduced by the end of 2030. So the government also wants to support energy saving with about 190 million euros per year. And it also sets a federal renovation quota for federal buildings at about 3%. So on this new regulation, our positive view is that it has also promised a reduction of administrative burdens for the economy, and of course the promotion of measures for energy efficiency on company level via the subsidies of 190 million per year. The problem that we see here also in this approach again is that the energy efficiency measures have not recognized the fuel sector. So this is not part of these energy efficiency measures. And we, in general, prefer more technology open approaches to energy efficiency. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will return to Mr. Abdel Karim from Egypt. I don't know, Mr. Abdel Karim, if you heard my question, but the question was regarding the decree on the adoption of mandatory premium efficiency motors that was adopted by the government to promote energy efficiency. And I would like to ask you if you can describe the policy design and implementation, and what do you think are the positive impact and challenges related to the application of this decree? And you can also turn on your camera now if you want, Mr. Abdel Karim.
Thank you very much, and I'm sorry for this interruption, as I am in my car to other commitment. Regarding the questions, the Egyptian government recently developed a comprehensive plan to enhance the efficiency of resource use and reduce greenhouse emissions. Among these steps, the Ministry of Trade and Industry issued Ministerial Decree number 463 of 2020 to enhance the efficiency of electric motor industrial operation. Hence, UNIDO, in cooperation with the Ministry of Trade and Industry, implemented the Industry Motor Efficiency Program, which enhances the relevant decision issued by the ministry to support Egyptian policies in reducing emission in industrial process. As motors consumes about 70% of the electrical energy in the sector. This would help save the electric energy in the sector by about 4% of electricity consumption in Egypt. The Ministerial Decree number 463 of 2020 includes two parts. The first part of which is connected with placing a data panel or nameplate on all AC motors in Egypt showing the energy efficiency of these motors according to the degree of energy efficiency IE code and in accordance with the tables announced by EOS. The decree also applies to AC motors and single motors and efficiency motors. As for the second part of the decree, it applies to the so-called minimum energy efficiency guarantee, which should prevent entry of low efficiency motors less than IE3 efficiency into the Egyptian market. The decree applies to three-phase squirrel cage induction motors with capacity up to 375 kilowatt. The ministerial decree as a whole also included observance of the application of its provision to types of motors in different sizes. Thus, the ministerial decree mandates the procedure and the importers of electric motors that the electric motor should conform to the Egyptian standard specification corresponding to the international specification of energy level of motors in different types, as well as allows the import and manufacture of motors on the basis of energy efficiency and the development of specific mechanism to verify their efficiency levels in according to the Egyptian standard specification, or an equivalent approved certificate conforming its compliance with the level of energy. One of the major barriers to replacing old motors and installing solar energy or other motors in Egyptian industry company is the inherent costs incurred during the identification, purchase, and shutdown period required. Without financial support, energy efficient motor cannot be widely adopted as few industries have the financial means to do so. Currently, financial mechanism to support the wide scale development of energy efficient motor is significantly limited. Meanwhile, the finance available for industrial renewable energy projects maintain high interest rates and collateral requirements. Ministry of Trade and Industry, in cooperation with UNIDO, are working together to overcome this challenging through the following: the creation of revolving fund to finance eligible projects, a dedicated bank of staff training on evaluating industrial renewable energy proposal, an analysis of the visibility of energy companies as a sustainable mechanism to deliver upfront financing support of energy efficiency projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdel Karim, for highlighting those important points. As you mentioned, the motors are consuming more than 20% of energy efficiency in the sector. And thank you also for highlighting this cooperation between the government of Egypt and UNIDO to put in place some measures and activities. My question now to Ms. Dora from Ghana. The country has introduced many measures to promote energy efficiency, such labeling of industrial products and promotion of energy efficiency refrigerators. To what extent energy efficiency can represent an opportunity for industrialization by providing more efficient and environmental friendly industrial goods?
Thank you. You know, energy efficiency makes the energy available for other users in industries, and it's improved the agenda for industries. You know, the industrialization will require energy efficiency equipment to make sure energy is available for other industry. Example, if we have 100 megawatts for 4 industries, with energy efficiency system in place, we can end up building 6 industries because energy is efficient or available. Secondly, we are moving towards energy transition period where carbon pricing and intense energy use is key index. So products from industries will be green and there will be less energy intense, and that will be accepted by the markets because of the energy efficiency and energy source used. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will stop here with the questions, and we will open the session for questions and answer. I will ask the audience to ask questions, and also the participant online can write the question or can raise the hand actually and request the floor. Is there any request or any question online or the audience, as we have 5 minutes before passing the floor to our colleague for the next session? If there is no question, I would like to thank you all for your participation. I would like to thank Mr. Yasunaga, Madam Honeim, Miss Moni, Mr. Abdel Karim from Egypt for sharing the experience from Egypt, Mr. Thomas Ebel from Austria for bringing this dimension from the private sector, and Miss Laria from Ghana for sharing the experience of Ghana. I think that during all the intervention, all the speakers agreed that energy efficiency represents an important option today for decarbonization. And as my colleague mentioned, it's an invisible solution that should be today very visible in the climate debate in general. The complex Agenda 2030 required to maximize as much as possible synergies among objectives and to minimize trade-offs. The importance also of collaboration between the different countries, different sectors, but also regional collaboration, and the relevance of the activities and action of UNIDO. We heard a lot from the different speakers, especially from Ghana and Egypt, about the relevance of UNIDO activities. Thank you very much, and I pass the floor to my colleague Petra Schwager, the Chief of Division of Climate and Technology Partnership, for the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.